Hey everyone, Ricardo here with Gathering Magic in our second half of week 1 of the official spoiler season. So we have started to get some more of the cons to show up for the party. The first con I'll introduce is Anafenza, the Foremost. She is a 4/4 legendary human soldier for a white, black, and green mana. Whenever Anafenza the Foremost attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on another tapped creature you control. She also has a replacement effect. If a creature card will be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So her ability is pretty in sync with her clans to use Outlast. It seems as if your creature was too weak to tussle with your opponents, you could just use Outlast and let Anafenza do the dirty work. She's also a 4/4 body for 3 mana. Yeah, sure, it's pretty specific which 3 mana you have to use, but still, that's a pretty good deal. Also, I find her replacement effect to be oddly placed. Why this kind of effect? Is it just for Delve, or is Wizards of the Coast trying to share a future secret with us? Next on the chopping block, we have Sidisi, the Brood Tyrant. Sidisi costs 1, a black, a green, and a blue mana, and is a 3/3 legendary Naga Shaman. Whenever Sidisi, Brood Tyrant enters the battlefield or attacks, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Her triggered ability is whenever 1 or more creature cards are put into your graveyard from your library, put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. That's a pretty sweet card. She synergizes well with Nemesis Immortals and Whip of Erebos from Theros block, as well as other terrific graveyard-based cards. Now, the great thing here is that we aren't afraid of Doomblade or anything similar, and this creature's 3 power gets through most things you want to swing into. See the Unwritten is a pretty sweet card too. Everyone I have asked about this card sees massive potential for this in Modern as well, due to Besayu being able to protect it. See the Unwritten is a 4 green sorcery that says reveal the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among those onto the battlefield, put the rest in the graveyard. If you are particularly ferocious, you can put 2 onto the battlefield instead. No casting can get in your way here. You can slam a plethora of scary creatures from Theros down with this card. You can get crazy things like Hydra Broodmaster, or if you're feeling a little crazy, you can even get Bearer of the Heavens. From cons, you can get complicated cards to cast that might be out of your colors. I love this card and think it's going to find a home in everyone's heart. Next, we have one of the scariest goblins I've seen in some time. His way of fighting is just the dirtiest and the most dangerous, and I'm sure he's going to be a thorn in the side of many. Ankleshanker has haste, and his triggered ability is whenever Ankleshanker attacks, creatures you control get first strike and death touch until the end of the turn. Are you serious? How do you fight against that? He just swings and says, if you don't have a first striker, you can't even compete with my team. He's going to make the monster decks look absolutely defenseless. Sure, Lightning Strike will kill him, but he's a monster that has to be dealt with immediately. You can't play against him in combat, and even though his cost is high, it's quite reasonable for his ability. On our list of karate master techniques, nothing is more potent than the Flying Crane technique. The Flying Crane technique costs 3, a blue, a red, and a white, and is an instant that allows you to untap creatures you control, and creatures you control gain flying and double strike until the end of turn. Yeah, you turn your creatures into unstoppable karate kids. Johnny Lawrence will quiver at the sight of your super secret combat trick. Now, all joking and me dating exactly how old I am aside, this instant can be a terrific finisher against an opponent who is seemingly too far ahead. It works well in conjunction with the Jeskai clan mechanic, Prowess, as well. You can use this defensively after a full frontal assault and force your guys into a perfect blocking stance. I love every part of this spell, and I would be surprised if it didn't see any play in Standard over the next few months. Karu's Spell Thief is a 3/3 Naga wizard that costs 3 and a blue. He has Morph, and his Morph back cost is 4 and double blue. His triggered upon morphing face up is counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost as long as it remains exiled. This card is very interesting. In multiple ways, he works as a lightning rod of sorts, because if you had played an onslaught block like I have, you see a creature enter the battlefield face down, you start to think of every creature your opponent could be playing. Either way, odds are you don't want that thing to flip up. Remember our good friend Willbender? What about Mischievous Quainar? Yeah, this guy's the new trick, and I like him. Next up are 5 morphers, and I'll have to agree with Marshall Sutcliffe on this one. These new creatures are pretty sweet. We have the Horde Ambusher for red, Ruthless Ripper for black, Dragon's Eye Savants for blue, Watcher of the Roost for white, and Temur Charger for green. Each one of their morphs flips up when you show a card sharing the color of the respective creature. Their abilities and stats passed Marshall's vanilla test, and I would have to completely agree that these guys are awesome. One card I will say I won't be excited for opening outside of Limited is Wingmate Rock. He is a 3/4 bird for 3 and double white. He has flying, and whenever you are raiding, you get an additional 3/4 bird creature token with flying. Whenever Wingmate Rock attacks, gain 1 life for each attacking creature. He seems pretty sweet on the outside. I mean, you get 6 power and 8 toughness, and a creature that is generating you life for you to climb back up with. But does raid always trigger though? I mean, sometimes you don't have a guy, and after seeing End Hostilities being printed, that might just be the reality in most matches against the always popular control decks. If you aren't playing against the control decks, and you're facing down another aggro deck, you might just be sacrificing a creature into their bigger blocker to get this on the board. Either way you look at it, getting him up with no drawbacks might be too hard to do. He also doesn't feel like a mythic. Being printed at mythic quality and being slightly worse than Broodmate Dragon is kind of a bummer. We do have a bunch of cool things, but we have one imposter that's doing the same thing as everything else. Clever Impersonator is a shapeshifter for 2 and double blue mana, and he enters the battlefield as a copy of any other permanent on the battlefield. This is actually pretty advantageous in a lot of cool ways. So Clever Impersonator can be any permanent type as long as it's on the battlefield, and that means a clone that can copy Planeswalkers. That's a big deal. Being able to win the control match because your opponent's Elspeth costed 6 and yours costed 4 is huge. That means you could play your 7th land, cast your Elspeth, deal with theirs, and you're suddenly ahead. Even Gods right now is huge. I expect this card to be worth it every time he's cast, and seeing play for the long haul. Utter End is a brutal card that I'm so excited and I'm waiting for it to be in my hands. The art, the flavor text, and the ability, all of it's so good. It's an amazing card that will remind you of Vindicate. Utter End is a 2, a white and a black instant that exiles target non-land permanent. That's a pretty powerful effect. Gods? Get out of my way. Planeswalkers? Walk to another plane. You just don't care about the threats perceived in front of you. As Zergo states, I came looking for a challenge, and all I found was you. It can speak for itself when it says it will be in standard for the next year and modern to stay. The last one I have for you guys today is the Sage of the Inward Eye. Sage of the Inward Eye is a 3/4 Djinn wizard for 2, a blue, a red, and a white mana. He has flying, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control gain lifelink until the end of turn. This guy might just be a house for the upcoming clan. I mean, you're already going to have a bunch of creatures with prowess, and they will all trigger as well as your Sage. Your creatures are going to be super monsters in combat. I wouldn't be surprised if decks popped up with this guy being the star player. The only question I have is what non-creature spell are you going to be playing with all these sweet all-stars? Well, that's all I'll be mentioning for this week. Next week, we should be getting quite a bit more spoilers, seeing as Khans of Tarkir is only a few weeks away. Please feel free to leave any questions on my Twitter, @Judge_Conde. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys next week here at Gathering Magic.